Happy Black Friday out there to all of you, the listeners, the viewers of Brandon's World. Happy Black Friday to everybody except, well, Matt Eberflus, the head coach of the Chicago Bears. Oh my goodness. So, folks, today on this show, we're going to recap the free Thanksgiving contest. I'm going to tell you how we went 3 for 5 in my Thanksgiving parlay, which included hitting the Packers' money line over the Dolphins, Josh Jacobs, and Devin Achin, both to score touchdowns. We missed two legs on that parlay, which of course include both in the Bears Lions game, which includes the over of 48 and a half. Which, for the record, if the Bears kicked that field goal and unless the game tied, it would have hit. And if Jahmyr Gibbs could have scored in overtime, maybe he scores on that possession where he fumbled the ball, we had a real good chance to win that parlay, and I blame Matt Eberflus and the Chicago Bears. So we're going to go over that. Plus, I'll obviously talk about WWE Survivor Series 2024 War Games, which, if you're listening on YouTube, will be in the next clip. But, folks, that was the worst end of game coaching situation malpractice I have ever seen in my life. For the record, I did not see this game live. I was traveling with family for Thanksgiving. I watched the highlights back. I saw clips on the internet. It's the only game I really did not see all the way through. Again, it's unfortunate, just because of my situation. But I saw the ending. Obviously, the Lions get up to a 16-0 game, halftime, dominate the first half. Bears come back second half. Caleb Williams finds Keenan Allen twice for touchdowns. A beautiful throw to DJ Moore down the left sideline for the third touchdown. Lions missed a field goal. It opened up the door. It's a 23-20 ball game. With one timeout with 32 seconds left, Caleb Williams essentially takes a sack, though it was a minus yardage after it looked like the play was a QB draw. And the Bears had one timeout left. They were about, 7, 8 yards maybe away from field goal range. And the clock kept winding, and they only got one play off, which was a Hail Mary. Obviously, it's on everybody. It's on the players, it's on the coaches. Why one coach, when that clock, I understand you want to save your timeout to the last play possible. But when you're at 12, 13 seconds, at some point you got to say, okay, we got to take the timeout now. It's getting close. Oh my God. The Bears now, this team, they're 4-8. You can make an argument. And again, I predicted them to go 9-8 at the start of my 2024 NFL predictions. Instead of 4-8, they should be at least 7-5. This team that upgraded, in my opinion, a quarterback, a wide receiver number 2, wide receiver number 3, offensive line. Their defense is still very good. This team was supposed to be the best Bears team potentially in my lifetime, especially ever since the Rex Grossman led Bears made the Super Bowl. This team is talented, but this team is a coaching disaster. And in the NFL, we know coaching matters. Look at the Giants. They got Drew Lock out there. They flat out quit. The Cowboys this year with Cooper Rush now have half as many wins as the Chicago Bears. Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers have 3 wins this year. The Bears have 4. Matt Eberflus is a clown. He is a joke. And the Lions, listen, they may be the best team in football, right? They're 11-1. The last couple of weeks, they have not played their best football. They're not unbeatable. They're a very good football team. This is a divisional rivalry. The Bears always play them well. And again, for Detroit, you dominated the first half. You only scored a touchdown in the second half. Sam Laporta at 3 catches for 6 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. Obviously, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, good game. Amon-Ra St. Brown, solid game. For Detroit, I think the biggest positive from this game, maybe their pass rushing without Aiden Hutchinson. They got Zadarius Smith from Cleveland at the trade deadline. He stepped up. Yeah. If I'm a Chicago Bears fan, my Thanksgiving was ruined. I couldn't have slept last night if I was a Chicago Bears fan. Which why the fact that it is, I'm telling you right now, it's 10 a.m. Eastern on the East Coast at the time I'm recording this today on Friday, Black Friday. The fact Matt Eberflus has not been fired yet is disgusting. I thought Twitter slash X, whatever Elon Musk calls it, I thought you would have bullied him into firing him last night. That's something not even a 10-year-old little kid on Madden who has no idea how to call a freaking player read a defense does. Again, I'm not a Bears fan, but I root for the Bears because I'm a big Caleb Williams fan. I'm a big believer in the team. I think that Caleb Williams, I think that basically the Bears are good, football is good. This is disgusting if you're a Bears fan. Sorry to my good friend Jalen Sandvik, who's a Lions fan. Jalen, you know I love you, but this, uh, uh, the Giants quit. Which I said I didn't know how this was going to be because every time I said a team quit this year, they come out, they fight hard. Giants played a good first half. This game was close at one point, but Rico Dotto and the Cowboys are their best rushing game of the season. The Giants are the new Browns. This game was not that entertaining, to be honest with you. And Cowboys win. Whoop de doo. Heavy for me as an Eagles fan. Dallas can improve their record, worsen their draft positioning. Giants are. I don't know if they're going to keep Brian Dable and Joe Shane. I like Dable as a coach, but I think sometimes you just need a new voice. I think the team's quit. I think you need a clean house. Um, yeah. We know the Dolphins can't play in cold weather. This was the easiest game to pick of the whole weekend. Green Bay, I should have taken a -3.5, but I just stayed away from it. I went Packers money line. As I mentioned, we got Josh Jacobs, Devin Achin, anytime scores as well. Green Bay quietly 9-3 on the season. Their two losses are to the Vikings and the Lions, who are both ahead of them in the NFC North. Plus the loss at Brazil against Philadelphia week one. So their three losses are to all three teams ahead of them. And that's why they are now the sixth seed instead of even potentially the number two or the number one seed. Now they go to Detroit next Thursday night, and we all know what happened last year when the Packers went to Detroit on Thanksgiving game. That's a massive game for Jordan Love and crew. Both teams obviously coming off 7 days of rest. Okay, so you guys that are viewers and watchers of this show, and I'm sorry, I don't know if you can hear that or not. There's a big loud truck blaring in my ear down the street here on Black Friday, and I apologize. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Um, but those of you that are viewers and watchers of this show know that every Thursday, obviously I said it yesterday because it was Thanksgiving, I give my money line picks and my best bets. Now, best bets are 5 games. I pick the spread. Money line, obviously, I pick every single money line game. Yesterday, I did pick all three home teams, Lions, Cowboys, Packers, to win. So we are 3-0 in the money line this week. I did not want to include any Thanksgiving games in my overall best bets, so we took those 3 games off the board. But I'll give you 5 best bets, and I'll give you my money line picks here in a little bit of rapid fire version for today's show. Obviously, with the holidays and stuff, I don't want to make this too long of a podcast today. Kansas City, I liken to bounce back. Antonio Pierce said it this week. Listen, they got Aiden O'Connell going out there. I think it's very clear who the two worst teams in football this year. One of them is from the AFC West and the Las Vegas Raiders. One of them is from the NFC East and the New York Giants. Antonio Pierce says the Raiders are the worst team in football. I don't know about that. They certainly have more talent than the Giants do. Pierce said obviously it's the worst team versus the best team. We saw what the Raiders did at Kansas City last year on Christmas Day. I think this is a revenge spot for the Chiefs, who, yes, they already beat the Raiders once this year in Las Vegas, but this is their arch rival. It may not be their biggest rival right now, but it is their arch rival. And we know the Raiders always get up to play Kansas City. And so, I don't think the Raiders going to be able to do a lot offensively, but I said that last week about the Panthers, and Bryce Young played the best game of his career. I think, again, at some point, Kansas City is going to show the ability to blow somebody out. They did it to the Saints this year. It's very possible they do it to the Raiders again. For my fantasy team's sake, which I had the Chiefs defense today, they show up and ball out because I went against the Cowboys defense yesterday. But we have not seen Travis Kelce a lot in a couple weeks. Black Friday, Taylor Swift probably in the building. I think it's a big Travis Kelce day. Chiefs will win. The spread is just a little bit too high for me this week. I think there's better picks on the board at 12.5, so I'm gonna stay away. One of those good picks I like is Atlanta. They are an underdog, and I don't really understand it. Um, I like the Chargers. They've obviously played very good football. Now they're coming off a loss last week, a tough loss to the Baltimore Ravens, where they are a little bit of Ravens light. They just don't have the wide receiver talent that Baltimore had. They remind you of the very early Lamar Jackson days. But J.K. Dobbins is going to miss this game. I think that's huge for the Chargers. That you don't have that change of pace back in J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Haskins has been an okay back in sort of that third back role. I don't know what kind of impact he would have as the backup back. I also think the bigger factor here is not just the fact the Chargers are going from West to East Coast because they've done that this year. They're used to a dome, so the weather's not going to be a factor. It's just that Atlanta, the last couple of weeks, obviously, the last time we saw them, they got their doors blown out by Denver. Then they went into a bye week. They've had two bad losses and then a bye. I think that Atlanta here will bounce back. They're still the leaders in the NFC South. Obviously, Tampa Bay plays Carolina this week. If Tampa wins, Atlanta loses. Even though Atlanta has the head-to-head tiebreaker, that division, which we all thought a couple weeks ago was Atlanta's to lose, all of a sudden, Atlanta drops three in a row. Tampa wins two in a row. It gets very close down there in the NFC South. I think the Chargers know, yes, they're battling with Denver for that final wild card spot. They're not going to catch the Chiefs. I think they're a playoff team. Yes, they have the Chiefs next week. It's a very tough game in Kansas City, but a game that I actually think the Chargers could win on a Sunday night, which is why that Cincinnati game was so pivotal for both teams. Basically, I think the Chargers can afford to lose this one more than Atlanta. I like Atlanta plus 1.5. Okay, Indy at New England. I don't want to touch this game. I'll be honest with you. I almost took the Patriots in an upset. But I think Shane Steichen is a good offensive coach. Indianapolis, the last few meetings have done well against New England. Anthony Richardson did not play well last week against the Lions, which was a part of my decision making that he will bounce back. And I think the Colts, more than New England, obviously, are still fighting and they still believe somewhat they can get into that AFC wildcard picture. Along with Cincinnati, this sort of feels like their last stand to me. I like the way Drake May is playing for New England. He's impressed me with the limited weaponry he has. He will look better than Anthony Richardson probably in this game, though I think this could be a Jonathan Taylor game. Indianapolis bounces back. Okay, I'm going to best bet this game. I don't care that the Jets are coming off a bye. I think Aaron Rodgers has already checked out with the Jets. I think Woody Johnson has made it very clear he does not want number 8 back in the building next year. Who knows what Aaron Rodgers' future is for the New York Jets? But at the end of the day, I like the Seahawks here. They've won two in a row, and all of a sudden they are lively in that NFC West, especially with San Francisco dealing with all their injuries. Arizona losing to Seattle last week. Seattle looked dead in the water. I kept saying it. Started 3-0. They fell to 4-5. Last couple of weeks, big wins in the division against San Francisco and Arizona to get themselves back. Even Mike McDonald, Pete Carroll, it really doesn't matter. Seattle historically has done very well traveling from the west to the east coast. They've done very well in that stadium, MetLife Stadium, when they have played the Giants in the past. So I like Seattle here to beat the Jets. Oh, the Jets are maybe the most disappointing team in football this year. You can make an argument for the Bears, certainly. Make an argument for Jacksonville. You can make an argument for Cleveland. But the Jets, this is the team that I picked to win the AFC East. Yes, this joke of a football team. Devontae Adams will not be there next year. complete bust. The defense is quit on Jeff Ulbrich. I am done with the New York Jets. Titans at Commanders. This is a weird one because I feel like this is a good bounce back spot for Washington. -6.5. For what I saw from them the last couple of weeks, though, it's like I don't trust it. They've lost three in a row, and it feels like if they lose this game, could that NFC wildcard spot slip through their fingers? It sort of feels like with those three straight losses, the division, especially the one loss to Philadelphia in Philly, it does feel like the division has sort of slipped through their fingers, and now they're fighting for that last wild card spot. Um, the Titans, I think they got a big road win last week. Obviously, division rival at Houston. I don't think Will Levis is the guy moving forward. Is there sort of regression for Tennessee? Washington, who lost that heartbreaker to Dallas last week, do they bounce back and just lay it on Tennessee? It's possible. You just never know what a Will Levis football game is going to bring you. Then I like Houston here. I know they've struggled in divisional games, just like they did last week against Tennessee. Jacksonville is coming off a bye. Now, we don't know if it's Mac Jones. We don't know if it's Trevor Lawrence. We assumed after their week 11 destruction by the Detroit Lions that Doug Peterson was going to be let go as the Jaguars head coach. He was not. And I can't believe I'm saying this about a Doug Peterson led football team, who obviously he was the Super Bowl winning head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles in 2017. I vote the Jags have quit on Peterson. Houston, they came off three straight primetime games. Obviously the Sunday night game against the Lions, Thursday night game against the Jets, Monday night game against Dallas. So maybe there was a little bit of letdown there. They took Tennessee lightly. They historically have done very well against Jacksonville. These two franchises are going in opposite directions. Houston knows that they're going to win the AFC South, but I think they want to fight along with Pittsburgh and Baltimore for that number three seed in the AFC. So that's why I have them winning. And I'll have them cover 4.5. Speaking of winning, this is the Bengals' last stand. And I will take Joe Burrow over Russell Wilson 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The Steelers' defense is good. The Steelers do not score touchdowns. And all of a sudden, and I talked about this, I predicted the Steelers start the year 6-3, finish 9-8. They started the year 7-2, so in my mind, they should be able to finish the year, 10-7. They'll get to that over 500 record, in my opinion. But this Steelers team is a defensive minded team. Their defense still leads the way. I don't care what all my Steeler friends tell me on air and off air. Russell Wilson has not made that big of a difference for the Steelers offense. The Steelers team beat up on bad teams. They always play the Bengals well. This is a big divisional rivalry game. I've never taken points against Mike Tomlin at 2.5. I'm just not going to do it. Though, again, the Bengals defense I know is horrific, but you give me Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. I feel inclined the Bengals are in every single ball game they play. Again, a lot like the Colts is sort of their last stand. If they lose, they're out. I think Cincinnati still has a lot of fight left in them. I'll take them to beat Pittsburgh. Then Arizona. They were coming off a bye. They got humiliated in the division at Seattle. This year, when Arizona has gotten humiliated, against the Lions, against the Packers, two NFC North teams, ironically, they have bounced back and played very well and won the next week. Here you got a Minnesota Vikings team who has been in some very close ball games, especially last week on the road, divisional game at Chicago. For whatever reason, it just feels like to me a regression for the Vikings is coming a little bit. They're both of these teams are inconsistent. You don't know what you're gonna get week to week. But I like Arizona here. I think they bounce back. I think Arizona's a real team. I think they're right in the mix there for that NFC West. This game is huge for both teams. Huge for Arizona and the fact that I don't think a wild card is coming out of this NFC West. So you got to win the division. And if I am right that Seattle will defeat the Jets, and as you'll see next, the Rams are going to defeat the Saints, and I like the Rams -2.5 If those two teams win, and obviously the Rams will play after Arizona and Seattle, Arizona just knows they have to keep winning. Minnesota knows they have to keep winning to keep ace in the division. I think, again, after a bad week against Seattle, Kyler Murray will bounce back. He'll play one of his best games of the year. I don't trust it. I feel like I should. But again, this feels stupid of me not to take the points. I'm going to leave it alone. But I got a gut feeling taking Arizona in the upset. I don't care that Darren Rizzi's 2-0 as the Saints interim head coach. They beat the Falcons. Again, that was the other Atlanta bad loss, as well as Cleveland. He has not had a road game yet as an interim head coach. He still will not. Rams, again, even though they lost that game to Philadelphia pretty badly, they're still in that NFC West hunt. I think Cooper Kupp, Puka Nakua have big days. Rams will defeat the Saints. Rams cover the 2.5. Tampa at Carolina. Listen, the way the Panthers have been playing, I'm not totally sure this is a blowout, though it feels like it should. Baker Mayfield and crew bounced back last week, dominating the Giants in MetLife Stadium. Baker's finally looked better under center now that he's got Mike Evans back. They got a ton of backs in that backfield. Rashad White, Bucky Irving, the other back that they have. They're spreading the football around. Cade Otton's also getting good touches. Listen, I like the way Bryce Young has been playing, and we know this is a Dave Canales revenge spot. I think Dave Canales obviously knows everything about Baker Mayfield. We'll see if his Panthers, who I think will play inspired for the former Bucks offensive coordinator, we'll see if Dave Canales has some things under the hood here for the Panthers. Why I think this game could be closer than people think, but I like Tampa to win the game. The big game, 425 on CBS. Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Carter, Philadelphia Eagles against Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, and those Baltimore Ravens. The two best rushing teams in football. And we all know the stats here that Lamar Jackson has only had one loss to an NFC opponent. Ironically, that was Daniel Jones in 2020. My theory is that obviously NFC teams don't see Lamar a lot. They don't see his speed like a team like Pittsburgh, like Cincinnati, like Cleveland does. And even Kansas City and Buffalo and those teams. Obviously, this could be a potential Super Bowl preview. This is a big game here. You get about 3 points for home field advantage in the NFL, which is why that spread is about right. If it was on a neutral field, it feels like a pick 'em. I've been saying for weeks and even at the start of the year, this feels like one of those games the Baltimore Ravens are going to get my Philadelphia Eagles. I would not be surprised. I actually would not be terribly surprised if my Eagles get routed here. But the one thing I'll bank my hat on with Philadelphia, the reason why I'm obviously going to pick my team to win the game and give them a shot, is the Ravens do have the worst pass defense in the NFL. And, even without Devontae Smith last week, and he is questionable, very questionable, but may play this weekend at M&T Bank Stadium down there in Baltimore. You have A.J. Brown, and you have Devontae Smith, and you have John Dodson, and you have Dallas Goedert, and you have that dominating upfront offensive line, which is better than the Baltimore Ravens offensive line. And if Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Urges, Mekhi Becton, and Lane Johnson get a push, and Saquon Barkley gets going, I think the Eagles will have a better time running the football and potentially getting better shots of play action over the top with A.J. Brown. We've seen what Jamar Chase has done this year to the Ravens secondary. I think A.J. Brown could have a similar performance. I think one by Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, Josh Sweat. The loss of Brandon Graham to a torn triceps is huge. But I think Philly's defensive line and their offensive line are better than the Ravens, which is why I give my Eagles a chance to go in there and defeat the Ravens. They cannot get behind, though, too early like they've done in first quarters this year. If this game starts out 10-0, 13-0, it could be a disaster in favor of Baltimore. This is a game I don't want to bet. I just want to enjoy. Speaking of betting, I will take Buffalo minus 6.5, even in a snowstorm. I don't know about Brock Purdy's status for the Niners. I just think, Fred Warner is now hurt. You don't know. Debo Samuel looks to be hurt. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk's out. Like McCaffrey does not look the same. This Niners team is falling apart. And again, it does sort of feel like their last stand. It does feel like a Super Bowl loser hangover syndrome, and it just feels like this is not the Niners year. And Buffalo is coming off a bye. You got warm weather San Francisco going into the frozen Buffalo, where there's going to be multiple feet of snow, wind chills, and all that. James Cook has a big day. Josh Allen has a big day. Buffalo makes a statement, in my opinion, that the second best team in the AFC, right behind Kansas City. I think this is a smash spot here for Buffalo. They win by at least a touchdown. They cover 6.5 in what should be a very entertaining snow game on Sunday Night Football. And the Browns, as a horrors, is Denver. Listen, I think Denver's going to probably win this game by more than 5.5. If I were you, I think there's better bets on the board. But if you want to take Denver, I don't advise against it. I think Bo Nix is a big game here. Um, I think Denver is better than we all thought. Listen, I projected them to win 8, 9 games. If they win this game here, I believe they'd already be at 7 for the season and in firm position to get one of those AFC wildcard spots. So the Browns have had nice victories this year at home against the Ravens and Steelers. They've struggled on the road. Their only win on the road is against Jacksonville. I think the struggles on the road continue for this Cleveland Browns football team, who last week in the snow, let's face it, Kevin Stefanski saved his job. I'm going to be honest with you here, even with Jameis Winston, Sean Payton knows him, obviously, from his time coaching him in New Orleans. This could be a disaster spot here for the Browns here on a Monday night in Denver, Colorado. So to recap, for week 13 in the money line, we already took the Lions, we took the Cowboys, we took the Packers. We went 3-0 on Thanksgiving. Today on Black Friday, I like Kansas City over Vegas. Then over the weekend, I like Atlanta over the Chargers, Indy on the road against New England, Seattle on the road against the Jets, Washington over Tennessee, Houston on the road over Jacksonville, Cincinnati over Pittsburgh, Arizona on the road at Minnesota, LA Rams on the road at New Orleans, Tampa on the road at Carolina, Philly on the road against Baltimore, Buffalo against San Francisco, and then Denver against Cleveland Monday night. My 5 best bets for week 13 of the 2024 NFL season are: I like the Falcons plus 1.5 at home against the Chargers. I like Seattle weighing that same number at the Jets. I like Houston weighing 4.5. I think it's a bounce back week for them, even in the division against Jacksonville. The Rams, they'll weigh 2.5 on the road in New Orleans against Darren Rizzi Saints. And I like Buffalo in a potential blizzard to flex their muscle against a Niners team that's suffering from a Super Bowl loser hangover. Does not feel meant to be. They'll cover 6.5. Like that clip from the Brand's World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brand's World podcast right here on YouTube.